Hello everyone, Vincent here with FCP Euro. We're going to be installing these upper camber arms on our Mark 7 Golf, along with these awesome toe links and these spherical bearing trailing arms. These are all from 034 Motorsport, and we're super excited to get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is probably the most advanced change we're going to make to this car. So we're going to replace this trailing arm right here, which has a big rubber bushing up here, with the 034 Motorsport version, which has a nice spherical bearing up here. I want to show you something. If we pan in on this bushing right here, so I'm just pulling on this with my arms, and you can see how much that bushing is deflecting. You can imagine if you were hard on the brakes or loaded up in a corner, you're going to see about 1 G of force against this wheel. On this corner of this car is going to be about 1,500 pounds of force pushing against that. So that's a significant amount of force. That bushing is made to be quiet and have good harshness and road noise compliance. It's not a performance-oriented part. First thing we're going to do is push this rivet out. So this is a basic little pop rivet. If you come over to the other side. So I'm going to take this. We're going to drive that right through. And up here. All right, so now that we've driven the center pin out of this, we're going to save that. Put that aside, make sure you save it. We're going to crush down these 4 wings I'm going to use channel locks here, and like that. Real simple. Just push them down, just kind of like the back, like a bit of a rivet, and then we're going to drive that through. And then just using a pin. The kit does not come with this, so make sure you save this. So now that we've driven this rivet out, you can see that the emergency brake cable is now free. So we can just slide this down, you can actually pop this off, and just slide this down here, get it out of the way. The next step is we're going to loosen up these 2 bolts, and then these 4 bolts, and we're going to remove the entire trailing arm. So first, using an 18mm wrench, we're going to remove these 2 bolts here. All right, so now these 2 are separated. Now we're going to take the 4 16mm bolts that hold this cage in place. Yeah. These are 16mm bolts, these 4 bolts holding this in. And now we remove the trailing arm and its mount. All right, so here we have the standard Mark 7 unit. This is with the big cup and the trailing arm, and here we have the 034 unit. So as you can see, the pressed steel arm is actually the exact same part. Everything's the same. You can see the same indentations, the holes, everything's the same. The big difference here is this rubber bushing is made for compliance. So you can see there's a rubber bushing, and I can just my fingers move that significantly. This is a spherical bearing. So this is a Motorsports grade spherical bearing. So this is going to allow articulation in all directions without any in and out movement. So basically this allows full articulation in 2 dimensions, but completely stopping the 3rd dimension. So to change this over, what we're going to do is we're going to grab an 18mm wrench and we're going to loosen up this bolt. All right, so after jumping to the ground to get some extra leverage on this, got this thing loosened up a little bit, we're going to just finish it off. So the main point of this upgrade is really to locate the rear suspension. So as you can see with this standard bushing, you can see on the in and out plane right here and here, there's a lot of play. There's actually no rubber there. So when you hit the brakes, that's going to force your rear wheel forward. Or if you're cornering hard and there's a force on it, that's going to force your alignment to misalign. Whereas this spherical bearing will not allow any of that movement. We're going to take this. This goes the same way. So this goes together like this. You can see how nice this fitment is. So basically it's just a tiny bit of an interference fit, but not much, just enough to smack with my hand and get it together. And now we're going to take the same bolt, we're going to drive that right through, and there's a captive nut on this side, so we're just going to thread that in tight.
Awesome.
So we've assembled the new trailing arm, the 034 Motorsport trailing arm, into the trailing arm cage. We put the nut or the bolt through. You can see the spherical bearing is in here, nice tight fit. And now we're going to tighten this down. So I don't have a bench vise, which is the easiest way to do this, is obviously just clamp this in a bench vise and use a torque wrench on it. We need to get it to 90 Newton meters. What I'm going to do is actually put a 19 millimeter wrench on this welded in nut on this side, so I can counteract the torque I put on it with the torque wrench. This is a little more awkward, but like I said, I don't have a bench vise handy, so we're going to make do. So, using all my arms and feet. All right, just make sure, 90 Newton meters. So now we have this torque down. The spec on it was 90 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. So I'm gonna take this and we're gonna go another 90 degrees with it. It's about 90 right there. So now we have this torque down and this is ready to go back in. We're gonna take our 4 body bolts, which are these, the 16 millimeter head bolts, and we're gonna go install this in the car. All right, now we're gonna reinstall the entire assembly into the car. So this is a really good point here to try to use the witness marks as much as possible to get this lined up as close to the original location as possible. So right now I'm just putting a couple bolts in just to hold it in place, to free up my hands. So lining up to the witness marks that I have in place. Get it as close as possible. Snug it down. So you can see I'm looking at these little marks right here, and I'm just getting everything lined up as closely to those old marks as possible. Cool. We're going to snug these guys, these body bolts, down to 50 Newton meters and give them an extra 45 degrees. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Give it an extra 45 degree turn. Good. All right, real quick, just to display before we bolt this to the carrier here, how snug this bearing is. You can see this movement is just really, it's pivoting on one point, and that's it. Pretty awesome. All right, so now we're gonna get it lined up with the carrier. So we're pretty close. This may require a little force just to get things aligned. See, I'm pushing on the carrier a little bit just to get it straightened out. And again, now it needs to pivot. So I'm going to push on the bottom. Actually, the whole thing needs to come up a little bit. So in order to get the entire suspension to move upwards a little bit, I'm just going to carefully hook onto something and pull it upwards. So now we're going to tighten these 2 bolts that hold it to the carrier down to 90 Newton meters. Now we're going to add another 45 degrees to these. Tick, 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 done. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the rivet holding this emergency brake cable holder on. So I'm going to snap it on here, and I'm going to swivel it around so it is lined up with the hole, and we're going to reinstall that rivet. So using a hammer, I'm going to line it up and softly tap that in.
Just tap it in. Just tap tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
So now we've passed through, and we're all the way seated. I'm going to take the pin and drive the pin through. And we're done. All right, so now we have completed the trailing arm. We are going to do the toe link. So here is a toe link, 034 form. Here is a toe link on standard VW form. So we're going to be replacing this with this. So let's get started. First thing you need is an 18mm wrench, and we are going to loosen this up right here. So next with two 18s, we're going to loosen up the inner mounting point. Does that seem to be moving in and out? So yeah, you can see there's absolutely no toe adjustment on that. So you can see this is an adjustable and this is an adjustable. Sometimes on cars you'll get this as an eccentric, so as you rotate this will go in and out, but there's absolutely no factory toe adjustment on this. So. As we started to loosen this, we realized it was going to actually hit the sway bar here, so we're going to have to unbolt the sway bar bracket on this one side just to give it some movement.
Just the bracket.
Just the bracket will allow the sway bar to swivel out of the way. You may not need to even take the bolts all the way out. Just loosen them. All right, so I was able to separate it away. So now, when I go to drive this out, you can see we have a little bit of room. We can wiggle the bar up. So when I reinstall this, I'm actually going to feed the bolt in from the front to the back. So you don't need to undo the sway bar to change this link. Okay.
Oh my God.
And that's how you remove the link. Muscles. All right, so one thing you're going to notice right away is that this one is not adjusted and is significantly shorter than this one. So I'm going to show you a real quick trick on how to get this thing to a stock setting. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the standard arm, we're going to pass the bolts through it, and we're going to set it down just like that. Now we're going to take the new arm and we're going to rest it on top of the bolts. And you can see right now it won't even go close. So we're going to loosen up this tire out a little bit, still a little bit off, right there. So you can see I can get it within, that's tight right there, that's loose right there, so right in the middle, right about there, will be within one or 2 millimeter of where it needs to be, which will be enough to get it driven to the alignment shop or the race shop or wherever you need to get it completely straightened out. So you want to make sure to lock these down. Remember, these are backwards threads on one side, so they're threading the same direction. All right, I think these are 24 millimeter, and I actually don't have one that's an open end, so we're going to use an adjustable on this. Shouldn't hurt. We're just going to snug these down, get them, make sure they don't loosen up. One side's done. Counter hold that side. We're good, snug. There we go. All right, again, another thing you'll notice is one side is thicker than the other, so this will match up with this side, and this will be matching up with that side. All right, so now we've basically realigned these up, and we're gonna get them to go in very carefully. So wiggling there, bring it up, and we'll get it here. And now we'll put the bolts through. So using the same bolts as before, on this rear one, I'm actually gonna go, like I said, I'm gonna go from front to back where the bolt was the other way around before. This is not an eccentric bolt, so you can do that. If this was an eccentric bolt and there's a little square welded here, you would not be able to do that. And then on the lower one, obviously this threads into the cast piece here, so we're just gonna come right down through here. And I'm just gonna move this sway bar into location, make sure we're not gonna have any clearance issues. So, clear that we're not gonna hit anything here. All right, so now we're going to torque both of these down to 70 Newton meters. All right, so final step here after we have this all fully installed is we're going to tighten the sway bar back down. Good. So now that we have the toe link and the trailing arm installed, next step is we're going to install this awesome 034 Motorsport camber link. So the first thing you'll see is we have a paint mark on the eccentric for the adjustment for the camber on the car. This allows us to get the camber to the standard setting before we go to an alignment shop or the race shop to do the camber on the car. You'll see we want to keep things as just like we did with the toe link, we want to get things to a normal setup so we can actually drive the car right away without having a wonky alignment and just sort of have it as a reference point. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Now we're going to go up here and we're going to loosen up the two mounts that hold the camber arm on. So there's a 22 millimeter fastener that goes through right here, and there's an 18 millimeter fastener, which is the eccentric bolt, which I marked with a paint marker. The other thing we're going to need to do is pop this brake line mount off the arm so we can get the arm out without extending these. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is pop this brake line out. You see I took a pick, I went under it and just pulled it away from the body a little bit. And there's a little hole and a pin that fits in that hole. I'm gonna do it to the other side. There we go. And we're free here. So now the control arm is completely free. Now we just need to unbolt it from the car. So using two 18 millimeter, there is not a ton of room to work up here, but we'll get there. Very slowly. All right, so now to take the outboard mount off, we're going to loosen up these two 21 millimeters. It's really tight 21 millimeters. Just prying back the bolt a little bit to allow this to come free. Bolt's free, pull it out from the inside. All right, so here we have the stock MQB chassis camber arm. So this is gonna sit up top. You can see it has big rubber bushings on it. It's just a pressed steel plate welded together, probably pretty flexible under high stress. And then next to it we have the 034 Motorsport. So you can see this has really nice density line bushings on either side. It also has a metal mount replacing the plastic mount that clips on here for your ABS line. And the last thing that's awesome is you don't need to use the eccentric bolt to adjust this. You can, but you also have this. So you can get fine-tuning camber adjustments, and then also as the wheel loads up, you're not gonna have the same flex that you would with the stock unit. A trick to get your settings right off the bat is similar to the toe arms. What we're gonna do is we're gonna set this up. We're going to take one bolt, and then we're gonna take the eccentric bolt and go through the other side. And now we're going to take this unit and lay it right on top and get everything adjusted properly. And it looks like right out of the factory, it's right on, right where it needs to be. So I'm just going to make sure this lock nut is tight. And we're good and snug. So now we can go install the new 034 mounts. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to install the new mount. But first I'm gonna do is pop this plastic ABS mount off, because we're not gonna need these for the ABS lines anymore. We're actually gonna use the new steel ones. Just pry these out carefully. One, and there we go. So now we have the new mount. I'm going to get it close to its mounting positions on the inboard side. So now using one of the bushings in between. Now installing the square washer, which this is doesn't allow this to pop out if this bushing fails. And then the nut. And then real quick, we'll reinstall these ABS sensor lines. So for now, I'm going to leave this loose right here. We're going to go put the bolt on the inside, and then we're going to tighten everything down. So now taking the eccentric bolt, I'm going to feed that through from the front to the back. And now using the washer on the side I marked, I'm going to install it on the groove on the bolt. I'm going to get the bolt lined up closely to where it should be. So right here, you can see I'm spinning the back side of this fastener to get it to line up perfectly with the green marks before I go and snug it down. You can see right there, we were perfectly lined up. And now I'm going to snug this down while holding the other one stationary. Okay. All right, so final step is now to tighten down to 21 millimeters on the outboard. Everything you saw done on the driver's side is the exact same as the passenger side, just in reverse. So all of the torque specs, tightening procedures, everything is exactly the same. Literally, it's just flipped back and forth. All right, so that concludes our rear suspension upgrades for the Mark 7 Golf. We changed the toe links, we changed the trailing arms, and we changed the camber arms all in the rear, as well as adding a rear sway bar. Really excited to drive this car with all of the changes we've made to it, and I really think it's gonna make a huge difference on the street and the track. What's up, folks?
Don't do that.
You don't like that?
No.
Come on.